Well, g'day everyone and welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another adventure with Trip for Two Australia. On this week's episode, Ali and I are heading into the Goldfields. We're going to visit the township of Kalgoorlie and check up some family history out at Coolgardie. But not everything goes to plan. So once you go and get yourself a cold drink and get your feet up for the next 20 minutes or so, come and join us for the adventure.
Hi, I'm Steve.
And I'm Alison.
We decided a couple of years ago that we'd work hard and save all of our money and start living life on our own terms.
So we bought a caravan and hit the road on a trip for two all around Australia.
So why not come and join us every week for our adventures?
So here's our spot in the Kalgoorlie 72-hour free rest camp, which you'll find located probably about, I don't know, a 3 or 4 minute drive out of the centre of town. Or I think Ali and I walked in the other day and it took us about 15 to 20 minutes, which was really simple. But plenty of area down here to set up, plenty of different sorts of combinations. Now there's a couple of rules that apply with this particular campground. You can't camp here in your car, although you might be able to see a few things going on around the background here where you see quite a few cars. You can't camp in rooftopers. In fact, you can't camp in anything that doesn't have its own built-in facility. So you've got to have your own built-in kitchen, and you've also got to have your own built-in shower. The rangers have been around quite regularly, but they haven't really thrown anybody out. So I'd say they're a little bit flexible. I think if you're really pulling the P down here though, they might move you on very quickly. The other thing you'll find located at the free camp just outside of town here in Kalgoorlie is there's definitely some toilets here that you can use. There's a great kids play area. There's some footy posts down there and there. It doesn't seem to matter whether you're into your AFL, your rugby or your NRL. There seems to be a post there for everybody. And just here behind me, just turn around, you see there's a big grassed area here, and there's the Kalgoorlie Rotary, I think it's music shell. But here on the weekends, I think it's Saturday, they have some small markets here, which is well worth a walk around. Lots of knickknacks. You can grab yourself a coffee or a sausage sandwich. So probably the most dominant feature that you see when you come into Kalgoorlie is the overburden mound, and it dominates the town's landscape, doesn't it? It's like a mountain range almost, isn't it?
It is, yes it is. We thought it was when we originally drove in.
Yeah, it's bloody huge, but it's also where the super pit is located. So we're going to go for a drive up. We'll have a look into the super pit. You can't drone or anything over it, but it'll be well worth having a look to see how big it is. I think they've been digging gold out of here for over 100 years now, so I'm expecting a very big hole in the ground when we get up here. One of the things they do here every day at the super pit is they blast, and if you have a look down there, I'll try and blow it up as best I can. You can see all the drilling rigs down there. They're just drilling all the boreholes that they put the charge into. So they dig them down to about 11.5 metres, and then they put in about 4 metres of ANFO, and then they pack it all over the top of the dirt, and then they let it all go. They have to do it based on the way the prevailing winds are going, so they don't put too much dust into town, but they do it every day. But something I found very interesting is I learned how to do this sort of stuff when I was in the army many years ago, and nothing's changed. Maybe the equipment. I think they used to use us to do all the digging of the holes in those days. The other thing you get when you come up to the super pit is you get a great view back over Kalgoorlie-Boulder. Well, that was the, I'm reading this from over here because I can never remember it. That was the KCGM super pit here in Kalgoorlie, the Kalgoorlie Corporation Mining Company, which was formed after Alan Bond failed here. He tried to buy up all the little gold mines and things in the 80s, and he didn't do it. So the corporation swept in, took the whole lot and built the super pit, and it is huge, isn't it?
It is massive. I don't think you really get an idea when you see it on the TV. just how big it is.
Oh, there's nothing to describe it. I'll give you a quick look at my Google Maps. Check this out. The whole screen is covered with the pit. And that's not all of the pit, is it?
No.
Absolutely
it's only the little bit they let us see.
Yeah, it's as far as the eye can see, and then around the corners and all over the place. But definitely worth a visit when you come into Kalgoorlie, just to get an idea of the scale of the operations that's here. I thought it was quite interesting. Like, you see the haul trucks, and they drive around, and they don't look as big because they're so far away. And then a car drives past them, and then you realise how big they actually are. It's quite fascinating to come and see.
Yes.
All right, from here we're going to head down to the 2UP school, and then we'll go into town, and we might finish the day at the brothel out.
That's disgusting, Stephen.
The brothel in town, the tourist attraction. I knew I'd get her with that one. All right, let's get going. And here it is, the famous Kalgoorlie Bush 2UP school. You'll find it located probably about 10 to 12 kilometre drive out of town, and the last 2 k's or so that you drive in from the main highway to the 2UP school is along a dirt track, which looks like it might get a little bit boggy after a lot of rain. So just be mindful of that if you're coming out for a visit. Quick little bit of history on 2UP in Australia. Most people are aware of it because they play it on Anzac Day, because it was tradition that was played by soldiers, particularly during the First War. But it's in fact been played in Australia since the arrival of the First Fleet, and really embedded itself into our culture during the late 1800s, when prospectors here in the eastern goldfields of Western Australia were flooded in for a long period of time, and 2UP emerged as their favourite pastime. I'm sure there's been plenty of fortunes won and lost in this particular ring right here. If you'd like to come out and have a game of 2UP, you can do it here at the Bush 2UP school. It's the only place in Western Australia that has legalised year-round 2UP playing, or gambling I suppose, at this site. And they do it every Sunday and every public holiday. But if you just want to come out and have a look and immerse yourself in a little bit of our culture, then yeah, do exactly what we've done today. Drive out and go for a walk around. So we've just come into town. We're going to go for a walk around Hannan Street. That is the historical street here, and the main street in Kalgoorlie. Plenty of old buildings, lots of old pubs and things to come and see, and plenty of history in the town. So I'll go for a bit of a walk around, check it out.
Found in Nashville back in 1860.
Here it is. This is the main street of Kalgoorlie, probably one of the most iconic main streets of any gold mining town in Australia. I love the irony of how the place started. It happened in June in 1893 when 3 guys, Paddy Hannan, Tom Flanagan and Dan O'Shea, were on their way to the gold rush. At that stage, it was a bit further north of where we are in Kalgoorlie today. But one of their horses broke a shoe, so they stopped for the night at a base of a hill to fix it, and while they were there, they started poking around in the dirt. Then one thing led to another, and they found a little bit of gold, and then decided at that point they weren't going anywhere. But word gets around quick, and almost overnight, thousands of people descended upon the same spot, and it went from absolutely nothing to a frantic, dusty tent city, which they originally called Hannan's Find. But life there wasn't for the faint of heart. We're talking about the middle of the Australian desert, so there's no water, there is severe heat, and everybody was living in canvas tents. It must have been absolutely brutal. Eventually though, they realised that the gold that they'd originally found on the surface wasn't the main vein. They did find it located deep underground, and they started calling this stretch of area the Golden Mile. So the town had to really start to grow fast as more people come in, and they were extracting more gold, and they were desperate for the town to survive. So they built a water supply, or a pipeline, that come all the way from Perth, over 500 kilometres, to keep the town alive, which is still quite an engineering feat today. When you walk down Hannan Street itself and you walk past the old pubs and the grand old buildings, you really get a true feel for the character of the town and the type of people that it took to make such an amazing place. For a long time, mining here was always the same. It was individual mines, small claims, a lot of little tunnels and things like that. But as time went on, the old ways were never ever going to work. So by the 1980s, they decided it was time to go big, and I mean really big. And you saw that when we went up to the super pit and had a look inside of it. Today, however, Kalgoorlie-Boulder isn't just a dusty relic of our mining past. It's still a modern and thriving town. You've got high-tech machinery here with massive trucks and global mining power, and all of these things are still mixed, but they preserve the history of the town. It's one of those rare spots I think you can go anywhere where you can see the exact spot where Paddy Hannan found his first piece of gold. Then you can turn around and you can see today's modern form of mining. It's quite a unique place and well worth a visit.
Well, this isn't something we'd ordinarily put on the channel, but because we're in Kalgoorlie, they do have their world famous brothel, which has been in existence for over 100 years. You'll find it located just outside of town. You can do tours here, and they're done by arrangement from 3 o'clock each day. Well, that's it for our stay here in Kalgoorlie. It's also the last destination we have on our list to visit while we're here in WA this time. We're going to head out today. We're going to go around through Coolgardie, and then we'll come back round down to Norseman, and then we'll get fueled up, watered up, and we'll get ready to make our crossing into South Australia. I've got to say, even though we enjoyed our trip here to Kalgoorlie, it was a very expensive trip. Not living on the road is not always beer and skittles. We had a pretty major breakdown with the mighty Colorado, but what I'm really spewing about, it was through no fault of my own. We recently had some work done. They replaced an EGR sensor, and they used a second-hand part to do it. It's never apparently been functioning correctly. All of my system just clogged up with soot, and the car absolutely choked itself. It's cost me $3,500, but they're the things that you learn when you're on the road. The mighty Colorado is running fine again, and hopefully everything will be great as we continue our lap around Australia. Just before we leave Kalgoorlie, I cannot leave without giving a massive shout out to the fellas at JM & Sons Auto Diagnostic and Repairs. These guys were recommended to us from the local Holden Service Centre, and they've done a fantastic job with the Colorado. They took it in, they diagnosed it, they kept it over a weekend while they soaked all of the components that had been affected by soot which had clogged the engine. They changed the engine oil and all the other mechanical things associated with that. They ordered in a brand new EGR sensor for us, come in from Perth, and they fitted it into the vehicle. But what I particularly liked about their service is they kept me in the loop all of the time. They spoke to me in very simple terms because I'm not the most mechanically minded bloke on earth, and the price that I had to pay was told to me up front before they even put a spanner onto the car. So thank you very much, fellas. Highly recommend JM & Sons if you're heading into Kalgoorlie and you need some mechanical repairs done. We left Kalgoorlie and we've come down to Coolgardie, which you'll find about another 40 k's or so to the west of Kalgoorlie, and there's another overnight camping area here that you can utilise right next to the old railway station. You can see it here. We actually stayed here last night, but we just moved up onto the hard standing this morning just to do a little bit of work, and while we're walking around town, which we'll take you in and show you very, very soon how all of that went. Ali, you can see her was just locking up. But the free camp itself last night, probably not as good as the one in Kalgoorlie. Very, very quiet. We're the only ones in here last night, but same rules apply. You've got to have all self-contained and, you know, just the normal sorts of rules that apply. There's no tent camping and that sort of gear. But I'll give you a quick look around the railway station, and then we'll head down into town and check out the museum. So this is the old railway station next to the free camp when you come into Coolgardie. This one was established in 1896. Quick bit of my family history. One of my distant relatives, I think my great-great-grandfather, he was here in the 1890s and was a part of founding the town back in those days. So we're going to get down and see if we can see any information on him around the museum. But if you do come out and have a look at the railway station, you'll find that there's a train in on the tracks which was donated here because the train went out, or the station went out of operation back in the 70s. Unfortunately, it's been heavily vandalised by some of the local locals. Well, that's what the signs say on the outside, which is very, very unfortunate, but it is what it is. Well, here it is. This is the main street of downtown Coolgardie. When you have a look at it today, it's very, very hard to imagine that at one point in its history, a little over 100 years ago, this was Australia's third biggest town. And obviously that was in the, you know, the height of the gold rush times out here in the eastern goldfields of Western Australia. But it's a beautiful place to come and visit. There's lots of old classic buildings around. There's a couple of pubs that are still standing. You can see the remnants of the old courthouse and town hall and all of those sorts of things that used to make these sorts of towns quite important, particularly during the gold rush times. We're going to duck into the museum, which you'll find located
in the same entryway as the information centre and check it out. I said a little earlier, I have a little bit of family history in town, so we're going to get inside and see what we can find out. Well, we quite enjoyed our visit to the museum here in Coolgardie. As I said, it cost you about $7 each to go in. It wasn't a great deal of money. Pay your money at the information centre. There's a small door behind the counter there where they let you in, and there's about 2 floors of the exhibits that they have. There's a lot of information about the town and the history of the town and a lot of the characters that lived in the town. And let me tell you, there was quite a few characters lived in the town because it was all part of the gold rush days. It also talks about the decline of the town and how it's come to be the way that it is today. I didn't find out too much more history about my great-great-grandfather who lived in the town, other than he went into a partnership with another fella. They started a small building company, but unfortunately after a couple of years that company went bust and he packed up the family and everybody moved into Perth. But if you come into Coolgardie and you are stopping and you want to have a bit of look around the town, definitely jump into the museum and then maybe go across the road and grab yourself some lunch at the pub. Well, that's it for this week's episode. Ali and I really hope that you enjoyed it. That was our last stop here in WA for this year. So come and join us next week as we head down to Norseman to start our adventure across the Air Highway and back into South Australia. If you liked today's episode, make sure you give us a like. If you have any questions or comments, hit me up in the comment section. And of course, as usual, if you're not already subscribed to our YouTube channel, please consider doing so because it really allows our channel to grow. But until next time, you guys have yourselves a great week. We can't wait to see you. We'll see you then. Well, that was the KCGM, geez, it's hard to say, KCGM, Kalgoorlie Corporation Gold Mining Company Super Pit here in Kalgoorlie. It's enormous, isn't it, Al?
It's huge, yes. It's very big.
You can't... Oh, there's a joke there. I can't say that. Let me go again. It's very big. I was going to say that's what she said. 3,